Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. It's a nice sunny day out there that always puts me in a good mood. We're gonna get rocking and rolling here in just a second. Let me turn off one of these captions. But I wanted to give a tip for success for those of you showing up early and on time. You may have heard me talk about this, and I don't know if it's reversed or not. I got to pay attention to that. But 7 Habits for Highly Effective People. This is a fantastic book I've been reading since back when I was in the Army, and I read it every single year. And actually, as we come into 2026, I'll be reading it again. And I listen to the audio book. But the 7 habits are awesome, and you can learn more about them. But they're fantastic foundational habits for us personally, professionally, et cetera, and even on our business. But the one I wanted to point out today, it relates to the tip I want to give you, is one of the habits is begin with the end in mind. And the idea of this, hopefully it kind of makes sense, right? But begin with the end in mind. If I want to go on a trip, I'm going to say, where do I want to go? That destination is my end in mind. And as it relates to today's training, the end in mind I want you to keep in mind is how much revenue are you trying to get in 2026? What kind of sales are you trying to get in 2026? Having realistic expectations or goals that are set, the end that is in mind, right? Keeping that in mind, that helps us plan everything else out. And it really makes sense of the training that I'll be doing today as well. So check that out. Maybe throw into the chat for me 7 habits for highly effective people so other people track on it. Also later, tell me if I'm backwards. I can't tell. I can see it and I can't see it. And I don't know what you see, but anyways, let's go ahead and get started in today's training by my slides. Okay, so we're going to be talking about staffing contracts in federal agencies, and this was something I really wanted to do. Right? I have a lot of companies that I work with. Now I don't work one-on-one with people, but they're in my community, and I always like to, my network. I'm just trying to keep my eyes open for opportunities, and so this was one in particular. I was thinking of somebody, a couple of firms in particular, but I wanted to start sharing this idea of how I found 70 plus contract opportunities. It's actually a lot more, but if you whittle them down, I would say safely it's 70. And in the training, you'll see me even go lower than that. But it's one of the most common questions I get out there, right? How can I find opportunities or staffing opportunities I can win? And that's a normal question. How can I find opportunities I can win? How can I find staffing opportunities I can win, or opportunities that are in my sweet spot, what we do, our core competency? And that question, you'll see me talk about this more as we go forward, but it's just a process. And if you're not familiar with the process, or if you haven't mastered the skill yet, then know that once you have mastered that skill, you will be able to find the opportunities that your company needs in your pipeline to be able to grow. There are 2 types of opportunities, and I just wanted to point this out in the beginning as we go into today's training, because we're only going to talk about one of them. But basically, there's 2 types of opportunities with any customer. Frankly, federal customer is the one we're talking about. But there are new opportunities or new requirements, and there are recompete contracts. And the only difference is a new opportunity or new requirement. A really good example is the Navy says, I need a new ship. Well, that's not a recompete. They're saying, I need a new battleship. It's like, okay, there it is. And it could be the same thing all the way down. I need 3 new people to do staffing that are going to help us surge something. Well, that's a new requirement. They never had it before. A recompete is when the government has put out this requirement before, gone through the whole bidding process and selected a vendor years ago, right? And so that's what we're going to be talking about today, because generally if the government has paid for it before, and this is a generalization, if they paid for it before, they're probably going to recompete it and keep it going, unless it somehow went away. But for staffing, most of this kind of stays with us, because especially as we go forward, there are going to be some surging activities within the government. So just keep that in mind. 2 different types of contracts, new and recompete. Today, we're going to be talking about recompetes. Just because I kind of see them as more guaranteed, more predictable. The second thing I want you to pay attention to is that there's 3 ways to make money in the federal government. I teach this a lot. You can go watch, probably over 100 videos I've done just on that topic. But the reason I wanted to say it for today was we're going to talk about finding opportunities, staffing contract opportunities in particular. We're going to talk about finding those opportunities. And I want you to understand that if you find a really good opportunity, it could fall into one of the 3 revenue streams: subcontracting under a small, prime contracting with an agency, or subbing under a large. And all that means is when you find a really good opportunity, just decide, can I prime this and win it? If not, should I sub with a small or sub with a large? And I treat those as two different customer pools or channels to getting your revenue. So just keep that in mind. Whenever we find a good opportunity, one of your early responsibilities on that opportunity is to say prime or sub, small or large if I'm subbing. And then you should have your sales pipeline. This is something I just wanted to point out because this is why I'm doing this today, is I want to give you so many opportunities that you can find the slam dunk opportunities for you. Slam dunk, by the way, means opportunities. I feel like they were written for me. You feel like they were written for you when you read the scope of work. You should have your sales pipeline filled with those opportunities by June of 2025. Like that's just a random month at the latest in order to be able to achieve 2026's goal. Frankly, sometimes I would say you should already have 2027 opportunities in there. That's a separate one. But if you don't have your 2026 pipeline completely filled, it's not that big of a deal. They say, when's the best time to plant an oak tree? 20 years ago. When's the second best time? Today, right? And that's what we're doing today when we go into these opportunities is we're planting the tree of our sales pipeline so it grows into this big, beautiful tree. So plant the tree in the comments if you follow along with what I'm saying, that if we don't have our pipeline full, today's the day we plant the tree. Plant the tree in the pipeline there. I'm going to break up today's training into 3 sections. First, I wanted to, and this is all how-to, so I'm going to go back and forth from my slides to my screen where I'm going to be sharing certain stuff. But I wanted to talk about how I identified these 100 plus staffing contracts, and you'll see how it starts at like 1,000 or something, and I whittle my way down. The second thing I'm going to cover down is how I determine which ones of those opportunities or contracts are best fits for me. And how do I make that decision when I have limited information? We'll talk about that. And then the third thing I'm going to cover down on is what are my 3 steps that I do after finding opportunities that I like? If I'm going to go through this exercise, how do I do that? So that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to try to move pretty fast so I can get you some good information. By the way, if you're in staffing, do me a favor, say I'm a staffing company in the chat, just so people know. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. I am the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. I'm founder of Call Plan AI, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business government contractor after I got out of the Army. And after I sold my last company in 2017, since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we have repeatable, predictable results. This is what I want for you, and this is why I come back day after day. It's what I hope you get out of today's training is repeatable, predictable results for finding opportunities. Really quick, if you're not following me on LinkedIn, especially if you're not on the LinkedIn platform, come over here, follow me on LinkedIn. You don't really have to connect with me if you're not creating content. If you just want to make sure you're aware of the information I put out, the next trainings that I have. I do trainings every single day. The other thing is subscribe to my newsletter, Government Contracting Success Newsletter. You'll find a lot of good information in there that is specific to winning as a government contractor. And then don't forget to check out tomorrow's training. It's about industry days, events and slides. How do I turn that into opportunities that go into my pipeline? You can go learn more about that on my profile. Okay, let's get rocking and rolling. Starting with, so again, I'm going to go slide and then share my screen, slide and share my screen. So how I identified these 100, and I'm saying it's about 100. So when you go in and look at the data, and you'll see what I mean in about a minute, it'll kind of go up and down a little bit. But the first thing I did is I said, I'm looking for recompete contracts. The reason I want recompetes is because recompetes mean the government has made a decision to spend before, and I can learn so much about it. And if I can confirm that they're going to go after it again, well, I don't have to go through all the hassle of a new contract, and new contracts shift to the right more often. The second thing I did is I said to myself, as I'm looking at these staffing opportunities, if they're still active, if the option year, for example, in 2025 was awarded and this contract is not expiring until 2026, then there's a really good chance that that contract is Doge proof. Doge came in with a hatchet and just cut out tons of contracts. And so I'm looking at a contract that is still going and saying to myself, well, somehow you survived Doge, so you're good enough for me, right? That's just a way to look at that. And then the process that I used, and I'll show you this in a second, is I used FPDS, the Federal Procurement Data System. It's just the government's tool where most contracts that were awarded are listed. So I went in there and I searched on keywords because today it's about staffing opportunities. literally, I'm going to show you the first thing is staffing. So you'll see that. But the idea is I could search on other terms that are like staffing. So support services, recruiting, admin support. You can kind of start pushing around. But I like the idea of staffing because it's pretty narrowed down. Second thing is I said I was looking for $1 to $10 million contracts. I want contracts big enough I can do something with. And if it's a $1 million contract and maybe the contract period of performance is 3, 4, 5 years, that's still a couple $100,000 a year. And for those small businesses of you out there, we know this, $100,000 here, $100,000 there, it starts adding up. And then the last thing I looked for is I said, look at opportunities expiring March through September. I felt like January and February were a little too close that maybe I should have been going after them right now. The reality is if I found one in January that I liked, I'd still go after it. But for you, I'm just showing you March through September, because if you're taking my training today, you might be able to take what I'm doing and put it into your pipeline and try to pursue it yourself. So I wanted to give that to you. Okay, as I go show you the demo and I set that up really quick, just put in here, Staffing Rocks, if you're excited about what I'm going to show you. And let me share my screen really quick. Okay, so it's always fun when you share your screen because it takes a minute to find out, but let's assume I'm in there. Here's the search that I did. FPDS, I'm not here to teach you FPDS today, so I'm just going to quickly walk you through a lot of these things. But the first thing is, if you look at the first search term I did, I said I wanted the estimated completion date to be between March 2026 and September 30th. So basically the end of the fiscal year, March through the end of the fiscal year in 2026 there. And the reason I was looking at that estimated completion date is because if it's a 5-year contract, then the estimated completion date, and let me switch over and see if I can make myself smaller. Oh, I am smaller. Good. I don't want to make myself any smaller. Anyways, that estimated completion date, that is like if there's a 5-year contract, that means when that total base plus option years are all done. One thing to keep in mind about FPDS, no contracting officer is the same. There is no consistency. There should be. They try to do it, but sometimes the data is a little off. You just got to keep that in mind when you're looking at stuff. And frankly, just treat it like a game where you're navigating it. It's like I just did one of those, break out of jail type things with my family, and we had all the clues inside of a room. I can't remember what the hell that's called. But anyways, it's the same thing here, right? Just roll with it. If you got to find clues, and if you can have fun finding clues, you're going to find a lot of stuff. Okay, first search term is the estimated completion date. Second thing I said was I wanted the total contract value to be between 1 and 10 million, right? So that's that search term there. By the way, if you're tracking over here on the right, it's the same thing. I'm just not sure how small that is. The total contract value for this one, I said, show me $1 million to 10 million. So that gives me a good range. And then the last thing I said, and this feels really important for me, I love it. I think you should as well. But it's the staffing, the description of the requirements. This is the only place where there's like a free text field in FPDS where they say what the work is. Sometimes the description is horrible. Other times it's really descriptive and helpful. Doesn't matter. You're just trying to find enough to get moving forward. And then you do more research on the opportunities. So these are the 3 search terms I did, right? And when I did that, you can see right here, I found 650 opportunities. Now, 650 entries. They don't represent opportunities because remember, if there's a 5-year contract, at the very least, there's a base plus 4 options, meaning 5 entries in here all relate to the same contract you're trying to go after. Then if sometimes they put modifications in here and some other stuff, update, adding a little bit more money or taking a little money away, whatever it is, sometimes there's more entries. And that's totally normal. And I'll show you how I go through 650 opportunities like this, because this is not easy to look at. FPDS does have this export to CSV, but it's not helpful. And I'll tell you why in a minute. But so I've created my own, and I'll show you that one in a second. But either way, you try to pull this data out and look at it. But that's 650. It's awesome. If I wanted to, I could filter it down by agency, other companies that are winning, et cetera. That's FPDS. You can learn more. I wanted to show you variations of this same search. So here I changed the search from, what did I do? Oh, I changed this one. Hold on. I'm looking at my March $1 million. Oh, I changed this one to 100 million, I think. Let me look at this. 650, right? And when I bumped it from 10 million to $100 million, I only increased it by 50 opportunities, but it's worth looking at. As I move on, the next thing I said was I wanted to shrink it. So this time I said, show me $500,000 to 10 million. And you see that there's a lot more. There's almost 350, 400 new opportunities over the original search I did, still just on staffing. And then this one here, what I did is I changed it to support services. This is an interesting one. It's back to the 1 million to 100 or $1 to $10 million range, same time frame, et cetera. But I changed the description of the work here that you can see. I changed it to support services. And that's when I realized I got too many. I got 7,000 entries. And so I would go through there and look at it and see how I might refine it. I might refine it by NAICS codes or PSC or something, but it's a way for me to pull that word. This one here, I tried recruiting and I got 41. So there's not that many with recruiting in the description. There are recruiting ones, but sometimes they're woven into other terms. This term here, I used hiring. I was like, oh, maybe they're, instead of staffing, they're doing hiring. And so you bounce back and forth on some of these terms. In this last one, instead of staffing, I said, show me staff. And it showed me 235. So I could have potentially 1,000 entries that I'm starting with. And that's a really good spot for me to start. Let me come back to my slides really quick. So in here, as I move forward, that's how I identify opportunities. I'm going into FPDS and I'm trying to dig in there. The next thing is I want to talk about how I determine which ones of these opportunities are best for me. And the first thing I wanted to say is we all start with limited information. That's a really important thing to remember. When I go into FPDS, there's not a lot of data. There's a lot of very static fields that are in there. This agency, this company, this NAICS code, but those don't tell me a lot, right? They tell me some, but they don't tell me the story, right? They tell me, let's say the situation, but they don't tell me anything about the problems or the work that they're really trying to do. That's why I hate the term like software development. What does that mean? What kind of software? What's the stack that you're using? So anyways, in this particular case, just remember we're all starting off from the same spot. And so if I know I've got limited information, then what I want to do is go through those 600 opportunities and just browse all the data. I use a tool that I export the data on. I built it myself because the FPDS exporter, the one field that is the most important field that they don't export is the description field. So when I go to browse, I can't do it. So I had to build a whole export tool and put it out there. And if you're in if you're in CallPlan AI, that tool is, I'm going to give you that tool later on this week. But the idea is you can still browse the data and you look at all this information. And for me, I'm trying to go from 600 entries in FPDS, right? Not opportunities, but 600 entries down to like 20, 30. If I can get 20 slam dunk opportunities into my pipeline, then that's a really good day, right? And so I moved through on that. And really quick before I demo, I review the description of the requirement fields. And so that's the one I showed you, or I talked about in a minute. Actually, I'll show you that really quick. Let me just show you over here. And then I'll show you where I do it. Oh, I can't show it to you because sometimes FPDS is up and sometimes it's down. And man, that bothers me. So I wish, like a lot of us have exported the data just so we can make it reliable. Let me come back here to my slides. So I look at the requirement field. I'll show you that, the description of the requirements. I look at the set-aside use. That's something I'm very interested in. What was your acquisition approach before, your strategy from the government's buying side? And then I look at the winner, right? I look to see, was the winner an 8A firm? Was it a woman-owned firm, et cetera? That can tell me a lot. Like maybe something was set aside to total small business, but it was awarded to a woman-owned small business. Well, that might make me go in and try to talk to the KO and get them to set it aside to woman-owned small business. I might have to compete with the incumbent, but at least I'm pushing out some of the competitors by pushing for set-asides I can compete in. So let me go ahead and demo this one. Hold on one second. Okay, so I built this tool to export the data. Actually, my co-founders in the last company I was in, she built it for me. And but we were able to build this thing that allowed us to get the data out that I always find useful. And so in here, you've got a ton of information. I'm not going to go through all of it, but just really quickly showing you things like, this contracting acquisition people. These fields that you see here are contracting officers, contract specialists. They're the ones putting this information in. So that's already really good information that's out there. And then let me try to get to I got to try to remember my fields. So first one I think I want is DC, if I do it right. Good. So the description. So this one here is the one I wanted to show you right away. So if I look at this, I can come through, and when I said I'm browsing and I'm trying to find opportunities, I can filter by a lot of things. I can try to filter by agencies, etc. But for the moment, I'm just scrolling down. I'm looking at these opportunities and I'm saying to myself, which ones of them look like they might fit, right? Human resource staffing specialists, staffing support services. These are very limited descriptions. I can see here, this one here is at the White House. That's Executive Office of the President, and it's United States Trade Representatives. That used to be a contract of mine with the White House. I had another one with USSTR. But I can look in and go, okay, these guys are looking for more almost paralegal or legal type people, because in there it's a bunch of lawyers, and they're looking to do, especially now that I look at it with all the tariff activity going on in the Trump administration, they're probably upping the number of people they need in there. But I can still come down here like you. I can start looking and going, do I find ones that really look like what I want? Pay attention to things like deobligate. Why are they deobligating? That might be an opportunity not worth pursuing. These ones here, updating the SAL, this is really good. When I see things like that, I might go over to SAM, and I'm not showing you today how I do this, but I might go to SAM and try to find the original contract data on here. So if you come down, you'll just see all sorts of stuff. You'll see them talking about money, professional staffing in the DC area. And again, I'm not going to go too far. Some of this stuff sometimes comes out as the medical staffing. And so you want to track on that. Let me show you one other thing just to track on that I said I looked at is I come over here for the set aside type. In here, one of the things that's most notable to me is I did that staffing one, right? I did staffing and expiring in the last 6 months of the fiscal year. Not one of them is a woman-owned small business set aside. I was just shocked to my core. There's 8A, there's SDDO, there's HubZone, but women, half the population, nah, you don't get a set aside. But that being said, see this one that says total small business set aside, right? That's where they didn't choose a set aside. If I was a woman-owned small business, I would definitely be targeting those type of opportunities. And then let me hit cancel here. And I think it is over. Where's my... Sometimes I'm talking to you and sometimes I'm talking to myself, right? I'm looking for this. This is what I was looking for. Is I might come in here and say, look, I'm looking for certified, man, this is hard. Certified woman-owned small business, right? Right there. And so that one, I would choose this one to try to go, well, these are companies who have won contracts and I know they didn't get them set aside, so let me try to pursue it. That's a way I go through looking at all this data to try to find the ones that can fit, the ones that deserve to be on my pipeline. And so as I go through, I'm reviewing, just a reminder, I'm reviewing the description requirements. I'm looking forward to it to just go, is it staffing, right? Does it look like it's right? Remember, some people call this identified opportunities. I personally call them unqualified opportunities. They look good. I'm going to pull them out and then I'll invest 5 to 15, 20 minutes to look at each one of them to go, can I find something that makes me move forward or take them off my list, right? Like if I could find it in SAM, I might decide, oh, it looks good. I'm going to keep it and keep working on it. Or I see something in SAM and go, oh, this is like totally unrelated or something. Or if I'm doing staffing, maybe it's in a state I don't want to be in. So don't think that like this part is where you have like all the information and it's a solid opportunity you're absolutely going after. With the minimal amount of information we start with when we hear about an opportunity, whether it's an FPDS or in an industry day slide or in a forecast, we start with minimal information or limited information. And as we gather more, we make that decision, keep or get rid of, keep or get rid of. It's called bid or no bid, right? Okay, so let me get to the next slide. Hey, I wanted to, before I move to the last slide on what I do when I find those opportunities, I wanted to thank Voltron for being the sponsor of our daily lives here. Really appreciate that. Thank you, Voltron, into the chat. Let them know we really appreciate it. One of the things I'm excited to announce, and I've been announcing this a couple of trainings in a row, so you might have heard me, but Voltron and I came together to just build a level 1 masterclass on win themes. And so this is an introduction to win themes in general, where they fit, how to use them, and how to write them. And so really excited about it. It actually will make it available starting tomorrow. It's an on-demand masterclass. There's no cost to it. And you can do it at your own pace. So you can go back and forth on those lessons. But I'm really excited about the topics as we go forward, trying to help people get an understanding about how a win theme is kind of like a value proposition softly. I say that very softly. I'm not here to have a debate, but this idea of knowing what message are you communicating to the customer that says, pick us. And if you really want to strengthen your winning proposals, then, check out this course. It's really good. I put a lot of effort into it. Okay. And thanks, Voltron. I appreciate you sponsoring our lives. Okay, so by the way, sorry, let me pause for 1 second because I know them so well and I like them. Voltron is an AI proposal writing platform, and so they can help you go from compliant to compelling proposals in minutes instead of weeks. And so definitely check them out if you're at that stage where you're looking for some help. Okay, so let me talk about what do I do when I find slam dunk opportunities that I like. And again, slam dunk opportunities are ones that I feel like they were written for me. And with limited information, I might feel that with just the description. Staffing, yes, that's me. And then I learn a little bit more and I'm like, that wasn't written for me. That's totally cool, right? But when I find those opportunities, the first thing I do is I put them into my sales pipeline. This is a really important thing for people who are employees, not business owners in particular, because often your business owners in small businesses and even largest, they don't know what the heck you're doing, right? And so you need to get those opportunities that you're going to spend 15 plus minutes on or more, put them into the pipeline. So you have notes in there that says, I found this opportunity. It was staffing. It looked good. I put it in the pipeline. I worked on it for a half hour or something. And after further detail, talking to somebody, it's not a fit, we abandon, right? You want to have things like that in your pipeline that you abandon because you get better at trying to figure it out, but also you're communicating to leadership. Look, I am working. These are all the opportunities I'm going through. The second thing I do after I put it in, and by the way, when you use FPDS, you have so much information you can use to fill in a pipeline. You want to capture that information, all the program office information, contract office, the incumbent, et cetera. All right, second thing I do is I build a target list around these new opportunities. I do them one at a time, but a target list, if you're not familiar with my 7-step process on federal sales success, it begins with research, and that's kind of what we did to find opportunities. Then it's target list or targeting. It's where you're building a list of people you want to reach out to talk about this opportunity with. And then the next one is outreach. Step 3 is outreach. And so step 2 on this slide is build that target list around the acquisition personnel. So contracting officers, contract specialists. You'll find those in FPDS. And then go find the small business folks, small business specialists, the OSDBU, the SBA's PCR, and you can watch all sorts of previous training where I talk about these things. Get the incumbent into your pipeline. They're part of your outreach. Even if you're not going to team with them, call them. You could learn stuff from them. How'd the contract go for you? Whatever, you'll figure it out. You also want to build a target list maybe as you move along with employees in that company, but not yet. And then the last one in there is program office. And these people are the ones you want to reach out to try to learn more information about this opportunity in each one of those 20 or 30 that you put in your pipeline. These are the folks who can kind of give you guidance through the conversations you have on whether you should keep that opportunity. And the last thing I do is I schedule an introduction call with them. I got a little ahead of myself there, but I schedule an introduction call with them. I'm like, hey, I'm looking at this opportunity. I would love to touch base with you about it. Can we talk for a few minutes? These 3 simple steps are, and I simplify my overall capture process, but these are the first three things I do as I find those opportunities to make sure I'm moving them through the sales life cycle so I can make another decision between unqualified and qualified where I say, do I keep it or not? Do I bid, no bid at that point? All right, so those are just the final steps I do afterwards. Let me leave you a couple of tips for what you should remember from today's training. First thing is finding those opportunities. It's not luck, right? You don't just come across them. You have to have a process to figure out where they're at. So go back and rewatch this training and you'll see that process again. But it begins by niching down to what you sell, niching it down pretty hard. I said staffing. Maybe I could have gone to healthcare staffing or something. And then the third thing is keep in mind, build the relationships long before the RFP drops. Get into all those stakeholders that you targeted and start talking to them about these opportunities. All right, if you want help winning federal contracts, come join me over at Call Plan AI. I don't have time to tell you about it now, but I go live every day at on Zoom. So I have a conversation at 3 o'clock with our subscribers. If that's something that interests you, if you're looking to get in the door and have more meetings, that's what Call Plan AI is all about. And right now you can get 90% off as I'm building it together with you. So anyways, I'm really excited. Remember, government contracting, it's not a secret. It's just a process. I will see you in the next training.